I'm not sure that, AI is, I'm not sure where if the actual value is in executing tasks. The execution of a task is just one part of the actual task. The other part is reasoning around what to execute. I think that is much more powerful. Like, let's say, like you were trying to build a company, right? Let's say there was this superhuman AI thing that you could just prompt it, like, I'm going to build a company and I want it to be with, you know, AI safety. That's the company, right? And it would just reason its way through exactly each step you need to take in order to build $1 billion company by yourself. That's more valuable. Those steps are more valuable than the actual execution of the step. And I think that part requires a lot of human in the loop, so to speak, because there are details that you would want to give it. There are nuances to the startup that you want to build that you need to share and collaborate with. But the actual execution, the pressing of the button, the writing of the email, the calling the person is trivial. It's trivial. For me, it's a trivial thing. That can already be done by an AI, and it's already done by AI. 70% of the internet is basically AI. So executing and posting and calling, that's a green check mark on that. It's the reasoning part that's interesting. And the question then becomes, do you need collaboration around reasoning with AI? And I would say that no matter how powerful it gets, you would always want to have some kind of collaboration with it. If the point is not to replace human beings, like across the board, just replace them with machines, then we don't need that. But if the point is to enhance human beings, well, then in my opinion, you would need collaboration.
Do you say, like, when you say reasoning, like that part is much more valuable than the execution part? What do you feel like the role of startups is in that? Because it feels kind of from like the surface level, it feels like the labs are building the reasoning thing, like the heavy duty models, and then maybe the execution part, startups could do that, or not, even if like computer use stuff comes. But anyway, like in that scenario that you're talking about, like what do you feel the role of startups is?
I would say that it's not enough to build just a brain. Okay? If you think about it, like, this is how we talked about it when we had our tough conversation, so to speak. We basically, what we thought was that you could describe it as a cell. A cell also has a brain. But in order to function and in order to be effective, it needs a bunch of other stuff. It needs a membrane. It needs to be able to replicate. It needs to be able to self-destruct. It needs to be able to collaborate. It needs to do a lot of different things. And that's the way I view AI as well. So even though you might have the biggest brain in the world, that will not be enough. And I think that startups can think about it. If you think about it from a first principles, perspective, you could start working on stuff that is the membrane or the protein or whatever attribute of this cell that you want to build out, where the better the brain gets, the better your plug-in to the brain also gets. I think if you have that mindset, and if you can work and if you can distill what would be the building blocks of that cell, that is valuable in the future.
Do you see people doing that?
Currently, yeah, I see some people doing it. I see, like, if you take like people that are working on memory, I think they are doing it pretty well. They're working on memory. It's an important part. Alan mentioned that earlier. I think that's important. I also think that people that are working on, real-time adjusting weights of these large models is also interesting. I think that goes back to, the model being able to learn new domains. That's also interesting. OpenAI did a lot of work there with their new fine-tuning stuff, but there are other people doing that as well. And you see a bunch of people working on efficiently training smaller models to do test time compute, DeepSeek, and all of these other startups as well. I think that's super interesting, how to optimize that whole pipeline. What I don't find what I believe will die out is frameworks. I don't believe in any type of framework at all, not even ours, even though we were framework developers ourselves. I don't believe in that future, and that has a historical, proof as well. Frameworks just aren't built like that. That's the way it is, specifically if you're targeting developers. I don't believe in specific workflows. If you're building a workflow type of orchestration layer on top, I think that you will hit some kind of, maximum level where it just doesn't do what you want it to do because it's not meant to do that type of task. So those are a couple of things that I think we will not see that much in the future.